Life can be so challenging. Where can you go to get divine clarification, help, and advice? Well, may I introduce Natasha Venter, medium, coach, and direct connection to your guides and angels. Through her podcast, Life Clarifications, Natasha will help you navigate through and create your life's destiny. My name is Kevin McDonald, co-host of this podcast, and I've seen her work and know that through her incredible talent, you can be changed forever. So let's start another episode of Life Clarifications with Natasha. Screen. Oh, there I am, and voila, there she is, the one, the only, the Natasha. How are you, kid?
I am doing really well, and how about you?
I'm doing really well too, but I'm a little sad.
Why is that?
Because my friend Natasha gets all kinds of people calling and emailing her and texting her, offering her money and wanting to make connections and liking you and stuff like that. And I guess the only thing to say about that is they're all scammers.
I'm actually, it's interesting how this is presenting itself, because I just got a text from, and his name is out of my language at this minute, because I can tell that Natasha Venter, who's a medium, intuitive, personal awareness coach, goes through life like everybody else. And right now, I feel like I'm getting a bunch of downloads and energetic ones from my team, my spiritual team, and my dyslexia is triggered. So his name is Mark Zimmerman.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg, that's it. Oh, I got a personal text from him.
He has a little company that you may have heard of.
It's called Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah, and so thank you, Sue. I don't know who's Mike. I know that Kevin is kind of like, sounds like he's got some water behind him, but
Is my mic still low?
There you go. That sounds better.
Does that sound better, Sue?
Yeah.
Sue, hello, Sue.
No. And I'm going to be right back. I'm going to turn something off because I think it's kind of back feeding through Kevin's thing. So I just got to turn something off.
I hate that. Okay, good. So I hate it when it. Oh, she said no. That it's still low.
Okay, but I'm hearing you better.
Oh, okay. Maybe that helps. It shouldn't be low. I should be, because that's on full blast.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go with it because I can hear you good, and I can tell that it was low when we first started because it changed once we came on live. So there's something that shifted there. But I was going to say we're going into Mercury Retrograde, so technology is going to be a little odd. And if anybody saw us on Monday, we were having a little bit of an interesting trouble with technology. And then, because there's always that shadow work before Mercury, and then after it happens, it's kind of like, you're kind of pre-working into what the story is going to be about the pre coming into the retrogrades of planets, and then you have the after effects of it. And so it's kind of like getting hungry before the meal, and then you're full after the meal, and it takes a while to get unfull. But that's kind of like the story of retrogrades. And so Mercury going into retrograde, the first one of this year, it's going to be kind of an interesting dance on personal lessons of how we can manage. And I can tell you already, we were already having problems with technology because I think that all of it's going through an upgrade. The 5G thing is coming in. We've got a lot of people online because of all the schools in remote. And so we got a lot of pull on it in these big cities, and a lot of, like the other day, Zoom and Verizon, and there was a couple other people that had we were having problems, and so we were just kind of managing how can we work through a lot of these situations. And Mercury retrograde, when planets go into retrograde, it's kind of like it's the rees going backward. And with that
Are you okay?
I am okay. There was just a repeats of what I'm saying.
Yeah. I had the wrong microphone setting. Thank you, Sue, for that. I think that because you can hear me better now, right?
Oh, much better.
Yeah, that's what I was. So, Susan, you are now the executive producer of my Independence Report. You put me on the straight and narrow, and that's good. So I got to ask you, what did Mr. Zuckerberg take? He's only worth like $75 billion. What did he do to take time out of his day to talk to you?
I know, that was what was so interesting, is that he texted me the other day, and I kind of took a bit to get back to him. So today I asked, so what did you want? Or is this really you? Is my first question to him. And he says, yes. And he sent me a picture of his badge for Facebook. And I went, okay. So I'm intrigued with a question mark. And so I started talking with him, and he kindly finally said, after a few texts, about how I won some promotions on Facebook. My name was picked out of 15 people. And I've kind of left it there because I'm kind of just checking in. I know this isn't all truth, but there might be a truthfulness in it. And so that's where I'm kind of like dragging this along, not giving any information, like asked something that was a little bit, I don't want to call it personal. It was a question basically where I live. And I'm like going, well, you should already know where I live because it's on basically Facebook. And I said, that, I live in the Northwest USA, very vague, and he says, why do you not want to give that information out? And I told him basically there's a lot of frauds out there. Yeah.
Not only are there a lot of frauds, there are a lot of creeps.
There's a lot of creeps. And I have grown up with creeps because I was one of those types of kids that I was small, quiet, sensitive, didn't really speak much. And so those were the kind of people where, if you're sitting in a party or in a bar, because I like to go dance. I didn't drink, but I love to go dance. And so I would go to the bars. Well, those people would kind of watch you, and they would kind of hunt you out. Well, I had a couple guys who would maybe follow me with their cars, from, let's say, from like Linwood, which was a half an hour from my home in Ballard, so it was like I knew they were following me, and luckily I knew some roads to go and that kind of stuff. But I've had people, I used to take Metro, and I'd had people follow me on Metro, and I just knew how to get rid of them, And so with that this is just part of that. Whatever you want to say.
The interesting thing is being a guy, to get somebody to follow me home, I have to give them cash.
Well, there was a couple times where, especially on the Metro bus, and I had to get off at my stop. I mean, it was where, I was in that stop, but I was able to take one step off, one stop later that was next to a grocery store. So I was able to go in there. But if I didn't do that, because the stop off before that, I would have to walk down some neighborhoods. And I'm one that I grew up in Seattle. I walked, after work when I was doing hair, I would work at 10 o'clock at night. I wasn't fearful, but when you got a creep following you, you kind of don't trust the road.
Well, and speaking from experience, because I drove buses for 11 years, it is vital. And for every woman that's listening, if you're driving or if you're riding in public transit, the couple things I would highly suggest. Number one, sit as close to the front of the bus as you can so that the driver can monitor what's going on around you. Secondly, if there's a stop that is dark or not very well lit, and there's another one that of, like you just did, which is a stop and you can get off in the light, please do that, because there is unspeakable stupidity that some people are willing to do, because I don't know why, but so please, and you guys know this, I admire you guys, because you guys have to put up with stuff that nobody in their right mind. I'd have one incident in my entire life, and I thought my wife set it up. So, other than that, I've never had any of that kind of stuff. But you guys,
I check my backs. When I get towards my car, I check, who's around me. When I'm getting gas, I do 360s. I'm not fearful by any mean. Because as soon as I turn into fear, I turn into a victim, and I am far from being a victim. But yet, it's like, before I get out of the gas, to get my gas, I put my purse in the passenger seat, or because my gas tank is on my passenger side, so that it's not close to where somebody can just open up my door and reach in. Or like, a lot of my friends would be going into like downtown Seattle, and they would put their purses in the car where they got to. I said, oh, no. You put them in where you're leaving. So by the time you get there, you're just getting out of the car like you don't have anything in your car. It's like, you gotta think smart, because life is happening around us. And the more that we're aware of what's around us, the better off we can be in our lives. It is about being the observer. Just that moment of if somebody walks into our house and they're not feeling very good, instead of saying, well, why are you angry with me? You can kind of maybe take a breath and say, oh, they kind of had a bad day, didn't they? So I'll just kind of give them a moment. And sometimes that observation mode can really set life up for a little bit more grace later.
No, absolutely. You don't actually have somebody walk into your house, do you? That is in a bad mood ever, because okay, well, never mind. I probably shouldn't have gone there, but but I get it, and that's why, and I know you do this as an intuitive, that you monitor other people's energy.
And I want to say this though, right off the bat, unless somebody gives me permission, I do not check in with it. Like there's that advertisers. It's kind of like when you're driving by a store and it's dark, you either know the lights are on or the lights are off. I mean, there's going to be the obvious thing that everybody does. Like when my other half walks into the door, I can tell if he's just had a rough day. He's been taxed to where he's spoken over his, 1,000 words for the day, and he's just done, so I don't want to label it as a bad mood. I just want to say that there's sometimes where he's just exasperated, he's in service. Maybe he's just carried a lot of weight on his shoulders because he respects his boss so much. There's just all these things that are, that can be laying on, that it's not necessarily always a bad mood. It could be just tired. It could be just wrung out. I come home sometimes wrung out, and I don't work the 12-hour days or the 11-hour days. So, it's just one of those moments where we just kind of have to sometimes be observant to see what is the scenario.
And sometimes it's better just to do, according to the gospel, according to Paul McCartney, just let it be.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes if you just let it go and let it be, rather than pester it, because I used to pester my wife when she would come home in a bad mood. Maybe that's why she's not my wife anymore. But because I'm just that way, I would say, "You okay?
You don't pester."
You have no. Are you all right? Are you all right? Is there anything wrong? Is there anything I can do for you? Is there everything? Shut up! Leave me alone. I would get that sometimes.
And I can kind of say that's a little bit my husband and me too. Like there's sometimes where, he's working on not being triggered right away. And he'll admit this, that he gets triggered really easily with things not going right and that kind of stuff. And he's doing very well. And I'll tell him that, honey, you've done very good right now. And he's like, I'm trying not to be triggered. I go,
well, after 30 years, you probably have got a good list of what triggers him, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, now for those that may not have not heard the word triggered a lot, give us your definition of what triggering somebody is or what it means.
That we all have a personal button that somebody else or even ourselves or life may do that gets us shifted, out of sorts, frustrated. And it could be something like someone in a store might say something that sounded just like a brother or sister when they bugged you, and that would trigger you. It would give you like a flashback, or what did you just say? You know, that reactionary mode of life. And so with that when we get triggered, and everybody does, it's called being human. And sometimes in my sessions, we talk to Sir Trigger, who I know there used to be a horse.
Yeah.
I know that, and I'm dating myself. I know there used to be a horse, but at the same time, though, sometimes, and I claim that every part of us has a voice. And even if we're getting triggered a lot, sometimes we need to talk to Trigger like a friend and engage with it to see how we can unengage you so that it's not, you're still there to help and support, but not so like in front and saying, no, this doesn't work. And you're trying to do life, but it keeps doing things in front of you, and it just makes life harder.
It makes it really tough when you are triggered. See, one of the pure things that triggers me, if somebody comes at me and they're mad at me, whether I did anything to them or not is immaterial. If they come at me in an aggressive way, that triggers me instantly, and then I'm less than cordial, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I know that about myself. And so I try and keep my big trap shut, which is, I don't know if you know how hard that is for me.
I've known you dearly a lot better since July. So our relationship is actually pretty new in the big picture of life, but I can get a sense of yes. Because usually, and I'm gonna mention this, a lot of times when somebody knows that they can get triggered this way, they're actually a little bit more opposite the other side of that. So if somebody is very very in control, they're probably a little bit more out of control than what they're showing. If someone's really nice, they're probably got this passive aggressive side to them that's not very nice, And so there, if you notice someone is more on the, I don't want to call it extreme, but more, more one way or the other, check and see what they're hiding, or I don't want to say hiding, but covering up or trying not to step into on the other side of that. And a lot of times that can help us. I know that a lot of us, when we're first meeting someone, like a mate or someone, it's like, they I got to make sure I pay you. I got to make sure I cover that bill, or, that kind of thing. Well, then, maybe about the third or fourth date, they kind of start saying, hey, do you mind covering half of this? And so with that there's, these parts of us that if we're really checking into who's around us, it's a really amazing thing. And I love people who are just sincere about who they are, and I try to show that by just being. Like my husband learned some information yesterday, and he says, now I gotta figure out how to manage that. I said, honey, you got there by just being. By being you, by making mistakes, by being a professional, by you trying to do right, by you trying to do this. So just keep doing that. And you're not going to do anything that's really, you're still going to be human. You're going to still you're still going to have the ups and the downs. And that's still going to be who you were all along. That got you where you were in somebody else's eyes.
See, I learned so much from the show. See, I thought that it was a rule that the man always had to pay. You have any idea how much money that's going to save me over time? I'm just...
Well, when my husband met me, I was one of his cheapest dates. I don't drink, I don't smoke. I'm pretty easy with just give me a hamburger. It's like, and then half the time, since I knew he was a father, who had to support his child, and a single dad type of situation, and I was in the boat I said, let's pay, I'll pay for half and you pay for half. It was just one of those things that it was just more common sense in that moment of our life, that not one of us was going to support the other, even though there's sometimes where he would say, hey, it's my turn to pay. Or there's sometimes where, hey, I just got paid, I'll pay this time because I know you're kind of, you haven't gotten paid this week. It was one of those things that, we just kind of flowed with the better good for all of us.
By the way, read Susan's last comments. I'm not allowed to.
Okay. So after Sue was talking about our mic, she says, I love that your husband has the awareness of being emotionally triggered. So many people don't. And I'm going to tell you, yes, he has climbed that hill to get there. I am so proud of my husband. I know that he has kind of sometimes been a part of the board of who we talk about, because he's just a good reference for me, because relationships are in our lives to teach us what we are to learn. And so if he's triggering me somehow, I gotta look at, oh, am I doing that for him? Like if I'm leaving something, if what he's leaving around the house is bugging me, am I leaving something around the house that's bugging him? It's like there's that breath in, breath out. And so every time that I've talked about something that he's working on, guess who's in the mirror too? I'm not leaving him to dry here. It's a dual work, and relationships are about dual work.
Now, come on. You don't leave your box around the house, do you?
I don't leave what behind?
Your box. No, I was making a joke. But yeah.
But the mic, but it kind of garbled. And it probably was a good thing it garbled.
More likely. Oh, by the way, she also says, being too nice. Now, I tend to disagree with this a little bit, in that I make it a point to talk to people at the grocery store, talk to the people on the bus, talk to people pretty much everywhere. I try and be really positive and so forth. And she said, being too nice often means having zero personal boundaries. Eventually, they lose their stuff and flip out big time because they just can't say no. And Natasha is nodding her head, yes, and so I think for most people, if it's not genuine, if you aren't being who you really are, my grandmother used to tell me that when I was 2 years old and I was in the playpen, and somebody would walk by, I'd smile at them and say hi. And then if they picked me up, great. If they didn't, I was just as happy either way. I was just a happy kid. And I'm a relatively happy adult. Of course, now I get to do exactly what I want, which makes me very happy. But, but there are some, but if it's not genuine, if it's not real, then you're right. Because you got to have boundaries. You got to be real for yourself, right?
Well, and I would say that, yes, being nice, and I'm going to use that word, okay, because that's a good word, being nice.
No, nobody wants to be a doormat. You're right. In that
respect. And so being nice, I'm nice, but there's times, and I knew love was going to come out in this conversation because it has been so much in my face lately about that, figuring out how love it's got all sides to it, and being nice. Yeah, we can be nice all the time, but does that mean that we're, like she was saying, a doormat? Are we too nice? Are we nice all the time when we really shouldn't be nice, but we can be lovingly kind enough to say no? And And there is those fine lines. And I'm going to tell you that that's been one of my life lessons in this world, is how to be lovingly nice enough to say no. And not now, or this ain't working for me. And maybe that's why I stayed married to an alcoholic for 20 some odd years out of our 30 years of marriage. Because maybe I was just too nice, that I didn't, that I wasn't able to say no. There's many nights where in his drunken rage, I felt like the garbage can. He was dumping everything he could on me. And was I too nice not to say stop?
I don't.
But that stop wasn't about being mean, vindictive, or angry. It was love saying, not now. I don't deserve this.
Well, and I think that's totally. No, hold on. I think that's totally appropriate. That's setting the genuine boundaries.
Yes.
Because one of the other things that you had going on when you were younger, because of where you came from, and I've learned quite a bit about you as well, young lady.
Mm-hmm.
Because of where you came from, you were really naive.
Yes.
When you started out, especially with relationships and with the men things, and it's really easy to accept someone else's anger towards you as, I must have done something wrong. It's a classic problem that a lot of women who get
or men.
Well, and I suppose men too. Yeah. But for domestic violence, and they accept him back because they figure, well, I must have done something wrong to set him off, and that's just not appropriate. That's not.
No, and I can understand why there's a lot of people who stay in abusive relationships. I can understand that. They said they were sorry. They said it's going to get better. And my loving heart I have this fault of mine that after about 2 weeks, I kind of let it go. So if something bothered me 3-4 weeks ago, it kind of gets in the past. I'm not one that holds a grudge for years. I don't hold grudges. Obviously, if I can work through the 7 years of sobriety, that I'm able to work through what is now. And that's a fault too, because when things start having patterns, you kind of have like a little padding around each one, and they're not as strong, or it's not like a rock anymore. They're pretty soft and gushy, and so they're not so hurtful as the next time it comes around. And so with that life happens the way it is. And, in my personal dance too, that every time I was going to leave him, a parent passed away, something, an uncle got sick, the kids end up having to have something going on with them. There's just these things that would just kind of pop up that would just kind of, I don't want to say keep me here, but keep me distracted enough that I stayed. And I can kind of see why, because this man that I'm married to right now has found love that he never had before for himself and for those around him. It's just the way he hugged our child before she moved to New Mexico. It was so genuine and so loving, and so the embrace was just so long, that he wouldn't have been able to do that 7, 8, 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's really true. And you have learned through time and through experience that what triggers you about him. But I am impressed as heck that he has taken it upon himself to understand, and like Susan said, understand what it's like to be triggered, and to really try and work through it. Because I've never met your husband. I've seen one picture of him, but
Well,
my
and you actually saw, you met him once as he walked by.
he was just walking by. But I have the impression that he's a man's man. He's a mechanic. He knows cars. When he was a kid, he
Very
worked
simple.
and he did all that. But that's a man's man. I could care less about cars and all that stuff. So I'm got a whole different take. But for him to give up that ego and be able to say, I'm going to sit down and understand my wife, and we're going to work together to figure this out, and we're going to talk, and we're not going to bury stuff. Burying stuff doesn't work long term.
No, it does not. Now, I would say talk is another story. He's a Leo. He's a double Leo, a Leo rising, Leo moon with an area with a Libra in there somewhere. And so he's always trying to balance the scales. He's always got fire in him, with passion, and that's why he gets triggered so easily because he's got 2 fire signs. It's just amazing how he just. And I need to stop talking about him because I want to honor him. He is a loving man who is just working through so much, as we all are. And sure. Like every Mercury in retrograde, there's these personal lessons we got to learn. And I know for me, we're going to switch this conversation. It's about love.
That's true.
And, it's kind of like for me right now that I'm finding out that love isn't always how I want it to be. And I know that. I've always known that. But like in the last week, my cat, who came from a feral mom and a feral dad, but was taken very young into a human's house, and so mothered and cared, and so had very much connection with animals, that over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, she's decided to become feral. She's living out her parents' story and living out her own story. She loves to hunt. She doesn't care. She doesn't have that human connection. And she disappeared for about 4 days, and then, saw her kind of wandering through the yard hunting. And we called for her, and she turned around and walked away. And this was a cat just a week ago, rubbing up against my dog. So I know that she's made some choices, but cats for me has always been something that fulfilled me. Now, me being an only grandchild on one side of my family, I grew up with only one other kid on the block, didn't have any boyfriends or anything until after high school. So really relationships for me were about my cousins, on my father's side, and my parents, and whoever. I guess that's why I got married when I was 18, because I thought nobody else would want to marry me. It's one of those, and I actually thought that, because I had such a low self-image that, and that's what that marriage taught me, was my self-image, by the way, that I could hold my head high because I was valuable. I was a valuable human being. But love has been the story of my life. How do I find love? Why do I love my parents? Why do I love my husband? Why do I love my kids? I've asked these questions myself. After my mom passed away, I really had to figure out how to love my toes, because I didn't really love who I was. I was in such a depression that it was hard to love myself. And so I started deciding to love my toes. And then I started loving my foot. And then I started loving my ankles. And then I started loving my thigh, my shins and my calves. So I kind of started having to figure out what love was about. And to this day, me not having a cat on my lap, which the last 2 females that I had were almost like my familiars. Whenever I was needing something, when I was going through a transition, they would sit on my lap and help ground me. They would purr and help ground me. And not having that really is showing me where I'm missing out on these like external passionate loves. I love myself. I have no doubts about loving myself. And I've been navigating through some personal experiences. Like my mom passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease, and my uncle passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease. And I'm going to name this right now because I think a lot of us are working through this life history of what our parents passed away with, or these scenarios. Like I had so many people tell me, are you going to get tested? Do you want to know if you got it? And I'm like going, no. Why would I? I already know that I'm working on my health. I've talked to my ligaments and my DNA. I've talked with my muscles. I've talked with my wiring of my body, my brain cells, all those things that trigger a lot of those MSs and the MDs and cancers and a lot of those scenarios. And there's been lately, since I'm at the age 53, my parents passed away when they were 56. So I'm like in that time when things started happening. And there's been some scenarios that have overlaid, like I am free from having those diseases, but there's been things that happened to my mom and my uncle that overlaid the similarities into my life. And I've always had a shoulder thing, neck shoulder thing that makes my back muscles twitch. Well, that was one of the scenarios of my mother is that she would get a weaker arm and her muscles would twitch. And I'm like going, I know I'm free from that, but why am I thinking that I am getting it? It's like these scenarios that keep circling around. And I was talking with a friend and she was saying, have you changed it into love? Because I have an understanding that we don't release something. Something releases into something else. So like an ugly duckling doesn't stop being ugly. It stops being ugly because it transforms into a dove, a swan. A puppy doesn't stop being a puppy. It transforms into being an adult dog. So we get these energies that just transform. And so if we can transform it to something greater, that instead of saying, no, I don't have the disease, I can transform it into love. So instead of saying, I don't have it, I'm free from it because it's changing itself into love. And every time I say that, I can feel my body feeling love. Because those cells are feeling loved instead of, oh, crap, or something else. And so we've got these understandings of ourselves, and we have to question, do we really have it? Or is it something that's planted in us as an idea to have it? And so, like for me, when my arms, and I've had this since I was like 21, that my arms get so bad that you can see the muscles spasming in my back, and I get migraines from them. And I can't move my arms. I can't even pull up my pants sometimes in the past. This is how much I've worked on it. So I haven't been triggered in a very long time, but I couldn't even move my arm to pull up my pants because after I moved, the pain was so bad. My hands would turn blue. Is how much the blood would be cut off from my arms. My fingers would turn blue. And, my fingers are always swollen, because of the lack of, there's a little bit of tightness in my arms up here. But with that though, instead of saying, I can't go through it, I've always learned to go through the pain, go to the other side of it, and see that actually when you stand at the edge of that pain, it's amazing how you keep hitting it. And it gets worse and worse and worse because you get anxiety, you get fear, you get all this. But if you just kind of breathe into it, and when it hurts, you just breathe through it, then it's amazing how it doesn't stop hurting, but you don't have the angst, the anxiety, the fear, the built up. My muscles would relax a little bit because I'd be on the other side of it. Instead of being engaged with it and fearful of it and tight with it, I would kind of go through the other side. And I'm doing this with this concept, going through to the other side of it. And like my girlfriend said, why don't you just change it into love? That's what I need to do. I haven't been changing it. I've been stopping it, but I haven't let it transform to what it needs to be and what it's asking to be, which is love. And so with, trying to find the love that not having the love of my cat, it's like, okay, Where can I find, because everybody needs external love. Some people need it more, some people need it less. Like I was talking to my girlfriend who lives by herself, and she says, it's easier sometimes to be alone than with someone, because you can be very lonely when you're with someone, and it's harder than being alone when you're by yourself, because your brain kind of goes, oh, I'm by myself. So it's one of those things that as you're working with things, like me not having my cat, I'm kind of more alone because I see her. I'm interacting with her, wishing that she was something, but she's not. Okay, so how do I manage this love that I want? And it's calling for me. But so then I'm looking at, where can I put love in other places? My dog can use a little more love. My husband definitely can use a little more love. It's like my house can use a little more love. And I notice that the more that I kind of give something love, even if it's this, it's not like I sit here and pet my angel, but yet at the same time, I respect it, love it enough to put it in an honored place, which gives it something. Now I can look at it and receive something, because it puts a smile on my face. And this actually, when I picked it up in the store, did something to my third chakra, which is about loving others and loving ourselves. And so it's kind of funny that I'm talking about that. Now I go, ding, that there's about those things that we can love. And when we're working through love, it's interesting how we really want it to be somewhere and we can't receive it there. Some of us are married to somebody who they just don't have it in them to give us what we're really needing. And so that's where we need to go someplace else to get it. Not to say go into an affair or that kind of thing, but like, I love my husband, and here he comes back in the conversation. He doesn't get me. He really doesn't get me. He's a very 3D world person. He's very much finding love. He really believes in his higher power. He's really talking about himself. But yet, if I start talking about, different dimensions and he lets me do Reiki on him, he's trusted me that far. It's like he just doesn't have it in him. But instead of asking him to give me something I can't, I have gone to a girlfriend who now have gotten closer, and we have these conversations that just go anywhere and everywhere. And it's like, okay, I feel a little more fulfilled. So then I can feel love for him at the where we are at together, because I'm not craving that. And so there's that fine line between not, respecting where we're at, respecting where somebody is, having good boundaries, having those loving boundaries. But at the same time, though, that dance of what can somebody truly give me that am I asking more? Am I asking more from this than it can give me? And that's a question we should all ask. But love and kindness is going to be the thing that's going to heal this world. But we have to start with ourselves and figuring out where we need to fill in ourselves. And many of us are going to go to like spending money or drinking or drugs to fill in that external void. When actually, if we kind of look at where we're craving love and we fill in somebody, kind of like me with having conversations with my husband compared to my girlfriend. Well, she's kind of filling in that calling to have just a conversation that somebody understands me, like having that conversation about, the ALS disease. If I would have spoken to just Mo Job, they would maybe have gotten into fear, where she was like, have you thought about this? Have you, and was moving past it to its greater good, which is what I needed. I didn't need to be in fear. I wasn't in fear of it, but I was wondering why I kept laying over me. Why did it keep tapping me when I was done with that story? Because she even says, you're done with it. No, you're free from that disease. Because I can see myself living to 90, 100 years old. And so with that, it's like, why are you still here? What are you here to teach me? Another layer of love. Okay. Another layer of love.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the ugly duckling thing, And I just wanted to and for those of you that I'm sure everybody knows the story of the ugly duckling, that there was a duckling that was with his family, and everybody said that you're just ugly because you're just different and stuff. Well, you know what? That was a story that his family told him or her, because when she grew up and became a swan, she was not a duckling at all. She wasn't an ugly duckling either. That was a story that somebody else told her, and that's what I got out of that story. So, and she learned how to love herself, but she waited until she was no longer an ugly duckling to love herself. She should have loved herself when she was an ugly duckling, because none of that mattered. And anyway, I just was just thinking about that as we were talking.
And I would say there's a portion of us, no matter where we're at in our lives, we can be 6 months old to 86 years old. It doesn't matter. We always have a corner of ourselves that always feels like that ugly duckling, that's not a part of anything, that's not a part of life, that doesn't really get it. And people say, I feel like there's a spiritualness coming to me. And I say, then get involved with a group that can understand you. Find that communication, talk with people, engage with someone. And I can tell you that I've had different people in my life that have popped up that have filled in this void of not having someone that would understand me, or who would understand me and move me forward. And they've changed through my life because of how I've changed and how they're changing. That sometimes it gets to a point where either their life is too busy or they're kind of go off on a different path than me. And that's where I've always asked, like even Kevin, I asked for someone to come in my life that can support my path to get me to where my soul is calling. And part of that was I didn't have the technology knowing at that time to get me on YouTube and to get me where I'm going. And through the conversations with Kevin and we both have grown immensely in our idea of what being on video is like. And managing the technology of being and working together. And he had, grace where I had not so much, and I had grace where he had not so much, but that's called partnerships. We all have partnerships where, we're here to teach each other, and we're all here to support our weakness. Like, Kevin supports my weaknesses and I support his weaknesses and with my strengths and his strengths. It's all those things that we can work together. And I can say that same thing with my marriage, that there's strengths that now that we're a little bit more vulnerable with each other, that, my husband is finding, well, I can do this, but dear, I'm going to need help with that, because that's your strength and it's not mine. It's one of those things that we just got to do what we got to do to work the things out to get to where we find that love. And this Mercury retrograde might have that story attached to it for you too. So I'm noticing there's a theme with it that, and I'm talking with several other people about how is love, self-love, boundaries with love, tough love, inner love, communication of love. Where does love, even if your car doesn't work, how do you show love? Do you get frustrated, and then do you get frustrated to the repairman because things aren't working right? Or do you kind of understand, I guess I didn't check that oil, that engine light was on all those times and I wasn't showing love to my car to get it fixed at the right time. It's like everything has a little bit of dance of love, and stretch that word out a little bit, because it's not about the heart, on a Valentine's Day. It's definitely not that. It's that, I'm going to love myself enough to say no to this scenario. I'm going to love you enough to say no to that scenario. It's just one of those things that, love means doing something from the heart that is maybe a little uncomfortable, but is for the greater good.
But it also can you take it out of your day, out of your time, rather than to say no, to frame the question in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can say yes and feel good about it. But as long as you're not sacrificing who you are or your boundaries, you can help people that way. And a lot of us take the opportunity to not thank and not care about other people enough to think about what's going on with them. We're a pretty self-centered society,
Oh, yeah.
and we're thinking about what's going on with us rather than taking the time to go, why it, let me give you a perfect example, young lady. This happened now keep in mind that we have gone, Natasha and I have been on a journey of sorts, and we've gone from where we were just doing the podcast to then we've tried to learn how to do the video with Zoom and so forth, which has led us to this and stuff. So there's been a lot of changes, and there's been a lot of short-term changes that happen pretty rapidly, and also Natasha's got like a full-time I don't know job. And so she's got work to do with that. And then she comes together to do this. And she's got about 10 or 15 minutes to get it all together. And so that we can do this podcast and this video cast. And what was it, 2 weeks ago when I introduced, 3 weeks ago when I introduced this format to her, and and so she gets on and she's looking for candles. She's going to light this and she's going to do that and get centered and get everything. And I said, guess what? I got something new. And she said, not now. And I needed to sit back and control my enthusiasm. And okay, I get it. We'll do this another time because this is not an appropriate place to do this now, because I was paying attention to where you were coming from.
Thank you.
Rather, well, I wasn't going to work anyway. You were going to shoot me anyway, but but if we all took that moment to assess where the other person is at, and then work diligently to not trigger them and to care about them and to love them and the walk that they're on, which is completely different than what you're doing. It's like Susan said, which I thought that it was appropriate when she said, when you're growing up able to stand up for yourself as a kid, it gets wired into you. Hell yes, it gets wired into you. Mm-hmm. You have to treat it like it is a false wiring. Your wires are getting crossed because it's not healthy and it's not good for you. So what you do is understand that, and then take a step back, and then understand where the other people are coming from. I knew that day that if I pushed it, you were going to throw me off the cliff, because not literally, but you were under a great deal of stress at that moment to get the show done, and you had the stuff that you were doing, and so there was a great deal of stress.
I just came back from moving my kid to New Mexico, exactly. And then it was the first day of school, going back to school, so I only had that weekend, which was a weekend where my husband and I had to get to know each other a little bit better again, because I did a lot of changing over my trip, the 1 week trip. And so we were fighting that all weekend. And so by the time I got to 3:45 on Monday, and I saw that he gave me a message at, 3:45, which is about the time that I got off my other Zoom to get on here. And I saw it was a new platform that he didn't talk to me about. And I was just about done with change.
You weren't just about, you were totally done with change.
I was done with change. Now by Wednesday, or actually I checked it out right after that. But at that second in time, I had to have boundaries. And I apologize to Regan, and I apologize to you profusely about, shifting the whole gear about where we were going to be. But I just couldn't input anymore. That's
being human.
it's being human. But was I angry with Kevin? No, I just lovingly had to say no. And he learned, and he knows enough that I can handle a lot.
But if I pushed you and kept pushing you, then you would have gotten angry.
Well, no, I would have not been my better self. And I, at that time, when I get into those stress moments, my dyslexia hits me, and I have problems with technology. I start short circuiting things, like my conversation here, and I start doing things don't work for me, and I know that about myself, and so I know that if I don't stop, go back 2 steps, breathe, know that things are going to go on. Let me just manage this so then I can manage that better another time. And by Wednesday, we were doing this. So
Yep, it worked out.
it worked. It does. And I thanked Kevin profusely for allowing me to have that moment.
Well, you're human. You're allowed to have that moment. You know what I disrespect? What I would disrespect, and now that I'm a little bit longer in the tooth and have been around this planet a little bit, is that if you would have swallowed how you were feeling and would have done it anyway and not been true to yourself and to try and make me happy, would have pissed me off, because that's not fair. It's not fair for me to do to you, and it's not fair for you to treat it like, because that puts up a boundary, that puts up a barrier between us that should not exist.
Exactly.
And so, and I wish that I had that time. I wish I was smart enough when I was married to have that type of relationship with my former wife, that we could sit down and have a real, honest to goodness conversation that we both understood needed to take place.
Mm-hmm.
One of us determined that she grew up in a place where if by tomorrow morning we'll all have forgotten about it, and so they bury it. But you can't bury stuff. You've got to be, because I guarantee you it will come back.
It will definitely come back. And that's the thing, that's what the passive aggressiveness is. And that's what a lot of this passive aggressive anger that's popping up right now is, because so many people have stuffed their emotions down. And I kind of feel like that's what our younger generation that have so much anxiety and have the Asperger's syndromes and the Down syndromes and that kind of stuff. They're here to teach us some emotions that a lot of us have, and that we've all been snuffing and not dealing with. That's why I mentioned back in this video even about talking with trigger. Talking that personality that keeps getting triggered. It could be anger, it could be frustration, it could be sadness, it could be like I had a girlfriend when I was growing up that every time she got angry, I would ask her, "What are you sad about?" And she'd get mad at me because I'm not sad. And I'm like going, "Yes, you are. What are you sad about?" And after we talked for a little bit, she'd go, "Yeah, I'm just sad because this living in Washington is not working out the way I thought it would." She moved from Alaska, so it was just and I'm just throwing things out, it's like, if we don't talk with these personalities, like a friend, how you doing? I know you're having a rough moment right now. What's going on? Anger, what's going on? Disappointment, what's going on? Why are we disappointed? Well, I grew up half my life being disappointed. Life didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. Well, how can we change that? Well, we can change it by knowing that there's things that are coming up that sometimes are gifts that we perceive that aren't gifts. It's because that moment in our relationship, that Monday, that is a fingerprint for both of us, that you saw me in that vulnerable spot, but you honored me. It's a place where we became more aware of each other in a different way. Sure. And what a gift that is for our relationship to grow on professionally and as a friendship. that there's these places that we can go now because we've been vulnerable with each other. But it takes that trust. And Kevin has shown me that I can trust him. And I hope that I've shown him that he can trust me,
Certainly. As long as you're in a different room, we're good.
But I was okay within just minutes, wasn't I? Because I even called Regan even and said we're back on Zoom and on our old number, So I was actually able within minutes to manage what we were doing and took responsibility for it. So yeah.
Well, that's very good. By the way, I did want to mention to everybody that's listening that my Independence Report has taken a new challenge, and that is that I'm going to be, Natasha, I am now booked through February 19th.
Wow. Congratulations.
From and I'm doing different podcasts, and 4:00 on Wednesdays is always going to be reserved for Natasha while she's shuffling the deck. But I'm now going to be live Monday through Friday from noon till 1. And so if you want a moment in time, I've got a great guest for you tomorrow, and he is a motivational speaker. And I need to publish these guys' names, and stuff. But I've been gifted with some wonderful authors who've written some great books. The father of a 15-year NBA star is going to come on. I've got a lot of folks on Fridays. I've got a PR firm that's going to be bringing me guests from their stable that fit, the positive ideas and stuff. So there's going to be lots going on. So if you got nothing better to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at noon, you can go to my Independence Report on YouTube or my Facebook page, and you can, which is Kevin McDonald on Facebook. You can find me and look it up, and you can listen live to a live broadcast, and you can comment and like we do here and all that kind of stuff. So that has been my dream for a very long time, and it's now going to come to fruition. That's it. So, and the one I did earlier today at noon. And you'll appreciate this, Natasha. Do you know what the term transience means?
Well, it's moving from one place from another, but not really having a home in the middle of it.
Wow, I had to look it up. And so the gentleman that I have on at noon, his name is Eric Hall. He's an author, and he writes short stories, and he's also a bus driver. And so in his world, everything is transient. Everything comes and goes and doesn't stay the same. And that's how we all are. That's our life. And if you understand that and are okay with the fact that your life, everything about you, the table, your cells, your brain, your heart is all on an evolutionary ride, and everything is transient and it keeps moving. And sometimes it's hard to keep up with, but if you're
and you have moments.
If you understand that, then you can deal with those moments that may inadvertently hurt other people, or with how you react to something or respond to something and stuff. So that's that I'm learning every day, and every day I'm with you, I learn more and more. So tell us what the cards are saying, young lady.
Well, I also wanted to kind of back Kevin up on that, because it is that. But right now, we're in this midst of life that if we're thinking something, we got to be careful what we're thinking of. Because like the other day, I was thinking about, this love and where am I getting love from and where am I not? And then all of a sudden something happened in front of me and I'm like going, wait a minute, did I concept that? And I heard, well, you kind of did. Okay, then I changed my words, because I wanted to I didn't like that scenario. I like the other scenario. And so I said kind of a mantra that changed it. Like I want love and communication. I want love and communication. I want love and communication. And by the time that I got to a certain place, I had more love in the communication. And then as time went on, there was more love in the communication. And so it's just, we can think of something. It may not always be what we want, but it's for our greater good. And so if we're getting a concept, think about how it can move forward. I've always wanted to be on many platforms. Well, at first, it had to start out with just YouTube. Well, actually, we were just talking about podcasts. And then, because that's where Kevin was comfortable. And I said, no, that's not where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be on YouTube. Well, we got finally on YouTube. And then, then he moved us onto this platform, which means Facebook and YouTube. And gosh only knows where else we're going to be soon.
Actually, the Independence Report is on 20 or 25 different podcasting platforms. We're on Apple and Spotify and Pandora and all of these, and it's updated simultaneously. So whatever, you've heard them say, listen to our podcast at whatever channel you like to listen to. Well, we're there. And you're there. That means that you're there. And it's good to know that you're there.
That's nice.
So
okay,
so
the first card I pulled out, which that's when I giggled, was backwards. Be yourself. So what was one of the things that I said in this video, which was that no matter what happens in our lives, the closer we can be ourselves, the more vulnerable we can be, and we can trust the people around us with that, the more love we can have for ourselves. So the fairies, by the way, this is Doreen Virtue's fairy deck. I wanted to make that clear. The situation calls for you to be your authentic self, which is the basis of your personal power. So the more that I am becoming in alignment with who I am and the love that I have for myself, which is another thing, I had to become more in alignment with love, passing through that Lou Gehrig's disease into love, so I can be more in alignment with a healthier body. That helps me to be my more empowered self. Because I can tell you, I'm more together today than I was yesterday when I was working through a lot of this concept. So the do some research was upside down card. So you are more, so you need more information about the situation. Look into it further before you proceed. So being upside down means is that there's a little bit of conflict with it, or you're not so much in alignment with it. So with that turn the card upside down is being more in line with it. So just know that life is about practicing. I didn't practice that very well, did I? Well, I'll practice better next time. It's about practicing, doing some research. I'm observing the personalities of the ones I'm living with right now. Yeah, I'm choosing to walk into the other room right now. It's like practice where you're at to see what you want to engage with. Get some exercise. Okay, so that's also upside down. So how many of us are not physically processing our lives? Many of us have gone through a lot of mental stress lately. And, with this COVID thing, with life changing, especially with the election, I'm just going to name it and claim it, whatever we've gone through, remember that being physical helps us process our mental. And so if we don't, it starts getting headachy. Our shoulders start doing this. It's like there's all these processes of what life is. And so being more physical, like I've been turning on music lately and dancing. That's my way of being physical. I just love it. And so with that, so be physical. And look at who's being physical. Look at her. She's just like, I'm deciding to do something that's enlightened. because as we go forward, we can get into it more of a business adventure. And business adventure means life. It's about being in our lives as a business adventure. What is life here to teach me? What am I going to have to do to service this? One thing that my teacher supervisor said one time, she says, I'm learning professional boundaries. And I said, professional boundaries, I like that. And she says, yes. As my supervisor said, sometimes we have to work with our co-workers, and yet we need to have some boundaries. And so we need to have professional boundaries because we still have to work with them. We still have to engage with them. We still have to be nice with them. So try having some professional boundaries with your loved ones. That's kind of sometimes where, like my coworker, had another coworker who would talk to her no matter what. And so she learned to have professional boundaries and put earphones on and would act like she's listening to a tape sometimes. And if if the woman started walking up, she'd say, hi, yes, I want to hear what you have to say, but right now I'm working and I'm listening to something. So can we talk about that later? Thank you. And put the earphones on and started tapping again. So she had professional boundaries. She wasn't mean, like, you're interrupting me again. She wasn't mean about it. She had professional boundaries where she put on even boundaries around her ears so she didn't have to listen to her. So trust the following, trust and follow through with new business ideas and career opportunities. So in life, keep moving forward, keep practicing, seeing where life is trying to show you. Be observant in your life because there's going to be some new coming into our lives. But remember, what we think is what we get. So what are we thinking to get? Because the last card, love life. When we love our life, and look how innocent that is. Isn't that sweet? It's like, love doesn't have to be hard. It's just about being. And when we can just be, love has this interesting balance of the basics of your question involves your romantic life, romance with ourselves, which is now changing to the better. So the more that we have love for ourselves, the more we have love for the things around us, the more we engage with ourselves and the things around us with a little bit more, even cooking dinner. Do we cook the dinner out of frustration and anger and then feed that to our family? So think about, where are we spreading our love so that we can be a little bit more innocent with ourselves, so we can have all these different things that are coming. So we have the business adventure, but yet we need to live and love life just a little bit more.
I just want to add to that if you don't love your life, fix it.
Perception is 100%.
If you don't love your life, do what you need to do. I had a friend that used to call me under the influence of Bacardi 151 rum. He'd call me late at night, and we would talk about his job, and that he was a customer service guy at for a boating company, and he hated his job, and he hated his boss, and he hated his job, and finally, after several weeks of this, I said, Kenny, hold on, we've been friends since we were 5. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, we're not friends anymore because you need to fix it. If you don't like it, fix it. You have it within your power. Change what you need to change to live your life, because your wife hates it the way you are this way. Your kid hates you the way you are this way, because you shouldn't be this way. You should be happy. Life is short. My brother would love to have, he passed away in the fall, would love to have more life that he doesn't get to have because he's passed away. This trip. He'll be back. But at the same time, it's better for us to enjoy life. That's my mantra. Live life and love it. Even love every minute of it. Okay, I'm done.
And I want to say that I, February 9th, 2021, I'm having a class with the new moon and the Chinese New Year to create some magic in our lives. I really want to help someone rewrite their contract in life so that they can have a different perception of what's around them. Even if you want to have a new animal, even if you want to have just this inner perspective different. And then I came up with this magical idea of doing a vision board with feng shui and the bagua of feng shui. And I have noticed how much everything has become in tuned with my process of my life, that my financials has come up at the same time that my calling has been for doing this whole circle of life. And it's just been amazing. And I want to give those gifts to someone to start their world that they want to do in 2021. And so if you know of somebody, or if you want to have somebody come, if you mention this video, that my class, which is now $25, if you bring a friend, it's $10 for the class and $10 for your friend. But you have to bring a friend and you have to mention a video. So with that, I just want to offer that to you. And if you are seeing this video after this time, you can have an individual session with me and we can go through the same scenarios. It's just the class has been a little bit more freer to be able to do that with a less price.
Very nice. So they got to go to your website to sign up. Would that be correct?
They can go to my website, and you can email me or email me from my website to say that I watched the video and I would like the special deal, because my on the website has the $25 price.
Perfect. So that's awesome. So by the way, we're over time, so we're going to have to wrap it up for today. And I'd like to thank everybody that's been listening. It's been really cool. And some of you are repeat listeners, and we really. Yes, we really.
Gratitude is beyond what I can tell you. I am just so grateful. So thank you.
Yes, indeed. So I'll be back tomorrow at noon. She'll be back on Monday at 4, and we're going to talk more about this stuff because I just love it to pieces. So you guys have yourself a wonderful day. Any last words before we go, Natasha?
As we've talked about love in this hour and a little bit more, just know that it's okay to practice. Life is not about being perfect. It's about being perfectly imperfect. It's about practicing to do better. And just like my dad used to say, he says, at this minute in time, I have this much information. Tomorrow, the next minute, I'll have other information that I would have changed what I could have done. But at that moment, I didn't know that. And so I made that decision. So love yourself for the decisions you've made in your past because you didn't know better to do better. And maybe after this video, you had more knowledge to do different. So practice doing better, because every time you hear something, a good song, somebody in the grocery store, a conversation on the radio, just something, even here, that you've gotten a little bit more in your tool bag to walk a little different in life. And I'm hoping this can help.
Thank you very much. You have a great day, everybody. And by the way, if you like this ending that I put together, let me know, would you?
Hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other because each other's all we've got. See you next time on My Independence Report.